There are tons of different ways to feed your starter. You can use all-purpose flour or bread flour. You can use a scale, not use a scale, but this is the way that I have found that works best for me when feeding my starter. The things you will need for this is an empty jar, filtered water, a scale, a spoon or a spatula of some sort, bread flour, and then your starter. And I turn my weight on. I'm using grams to measure with, and so on my scale I have zeroed it out with the jar on it. The jar I'm using is a Weck jar. These are great for preserving food in, and they're also good for sourdough because they have a really wide mouth for you to be able to get in there and stir. All right, so I have my jar on the scale. I'm then going to measure out 100 grams of starter. So I just go ahead and pour that into my jar. I make sure that I'm paying attention to my scale, and I have right at 100 grams. It's a little over, around 102. Don't stress if it's a little less or a little more. I'm then going to zero out my weight. I'm then going to take my filtered water and I'm going to pour it in, and I'm going to put 50 grams of water in. All right, that's right at 50 grams of water. Now again, if it is a little more, a little less, don't stress too much about that. All right, so then I'm taking my bread flour, not all purpose, but bread flour. Again, some of the different ratios will use all purpose flour, and that is fine, but in this ratio I use bread flour. Make sure that you always clear out or you zero out your scale before you're adding your next thing. All right, once you have all three ingredients in, you can go ahead and take off the scale, and we're going to just stir it in really well. It'll start to get thick. It may start to even bubble some. All right, once you have it all stirred in, it's going to kind of look like pancake batter. That's the kind of the consistency you want. At this point, you just need to cover it, and with these Weck jars, they come with glass lids and a seal. You don't need the seal for this. Just put that lid on, just like that. Put it up on a shelf and let it do its thing. One last thing, the leftover starter is going to be your discard. But even though it's called discard, do not discard. You can put this in the refrigerator and use it for other recipes. There's tons of recipes, and I'll be sharing more of these later on what you can do with your discard. Just keep on adding to the jar and put it in the refrigerator, and you will have discard that you can use for all types of things.